the world is going through some hard times. In these times, I think, the importance of diplomacy should be recognized even more. Diplomacy is a very important institution. As points of analyzing among the abundance of information, how do we manage this information? What is propaganda? What is truth? That's why diplomats, embassies are important in telling their governments the real story. A diplomat has to be commonsensical. If you don't say something true that is not true, if you say something that is not true, it will somehow come out. And when that happens, you will lose credibility. Diplomacy is at its best when it is more open. Of course, you have to have some confidentiality. You cannot share all bits of information, but whatever you say should be true, and that's what I rely on myself. Well, life in Ukraine is first about people, and we have really come to like Ukrainians. I think their take on life is quite understandable. Although they've gone through some difficult periods, they are still, life goes on and they know this. They want to improve their country. No wonder that there are, mixed marriages, and no wonder that there are so more people now coming and going between Turkey and Ukraine. It's not limited to just the sand, sun, and the sea. You can practically ski near Antalya. The east of Turkey is very interesting. It has been a gateway for many cultures. Last year, despite the difficulties in the tourism industry across the world, with the exception of one country, Ukraine, that is, tourists from Ukraine to Turkey increased last year, and they increased 48%. Well, that is because the Ukrainian tourists, Ukrainian people are informed people, realistic and reasonable, and they know that when they're in Turkey, they are welcomed. On the other hand, Turkish tourists also to Ukraine increased last year, some 25–26%. If they haven't seen, of course, Lviv and the areas is wonderful. Ivano-Frankivsk, the Carpathians. Of course, they should come and see Odessa and Kherson, even on those areas, and all go all the way to Kharkiv. We have flights to Zaporozhye. I mean, there are quite a few interesting places in Ukraine that would interest Turkish tourists. In Ivano-Frankivsk region, Turkish soldiers during World War I, 20,000 of them, came to Western Galicia, which now remains in Ukrainian, killed. They died. And the Ukrainian people took very good care of their cemeteries. We have these cemeteries now, 6 of them, and we also have one in Crimea. We visited the cemeteries, the military cemeteries we have. We also brought the Ottoman classical military band, and they also performed, including in the town of Rogatin, which is believed to be Roxolana's town. They performed songs, including the song called "O Beautiful Crimea." The refrain of that song is the same as the refrain of Jamala's song, which won in Rogatin, the Ottoman military band. It was a very emotional scene, and people recognized this song. These sort of things are coming out, people are remembering it, and it brings more cultural tours, for example, from Turkey to those areas. I think the 20th century has not done justice to our two peoples, in the sense that we have, if not forgotten, somewhat have been divided. This is the geopolitics of the 20th century, let us say. So the two countries, the two people are in the process of rediscovering themselves. But as they do that, rewriting their national narrative, maybe reconstituting their identity, they discover that their relationship with Turks, Ottomans, have been more positive than they were led to believe. We see this, for example, in historical studies. At times they fought wars, sure, but they've also cooperated, they've made alliances. In 1672, I think, the Ottomans with the Crimean Tatars, they were in alliance with Doroshenko at that time. The Sultan, who was in power in Istanbul then, was Mehmet IV, whose mother is Nadia, whom we call Hatice Turhan Sultan, another Ukrainian lady. In fact, some Ukrainian historians believe that Hatice Turhan Sultan, Nadia, was even more successful and powerful than Roxolana Hürrem. When you go around the country, in certain regions especially, we see traces of Turkish, Ukrainian historical, cultural legacy, heritage, common heritage, castles. You know, the first that comes to mind is Akkerman Castle. And there are other, historical sites that we should bring to surface. One of our main objectives is to finally open the Turkish Cultural Center. We are in the process of finding a proper building for it. I think in the next few months it will be possible. They will probably start with Turkish courses. There's we have visa-free regime, but it will also be possible to familiarize Ukrainians with Turkish culture. Ebru is a traditional Turkish art. In English it is called marbling. It's a special art done on water with very natural colors, paints. It's not just any art really. There is a philosophy behind it too. What we know is in the 15th, 16th century it had already come. It was being excelled in Ottoman Turkey. There are quite a few people in Ukraine who are interested in this. So when I first came to Ukraine, I was really positively surprised to see some Ukrainians doing this Ebru. My wife, who was also quite interested in Ebru, had the idea of inviting one of Turkey's best Ebru masters, Mr. Barutçugil. He's had many international exhibitions. He kindly agreed, and last week we opened his exhibition at the Taras Shevchenko Museum. He also gave a conference at the Academy, Fine Arts Academy. He also had we have even an art Ebru room. People from Odessa, from Lviv, in other parts, there's an interest. It's a wonderful art, and the good thing about it is every piece you produce is unique. You can never replicate it. Since we are so near each other, since we can empathize with each other, since we have complementarity between each other, we have Turkish companies have been strong in infrastructure. They want something extra too, in addition to other international investments. They want free trade agreement between Turkey and Ukraine. For them, this is like the two governments have had a free trade agreement. So they are the two sides are negotiating. There are a few sticking points. So we are encouraging everybody to see the bigger picture. We want to increase our investments in Ukraine. And our high-level contacts, high-level visits, which are increasing in numbers. Last year, President Poroshenko was in Turkey for this. Now this year it is our turn, and President Erdogan will be here with 6-7 of his ministers as usual. And this will be another opportunity to increase our cooperation in various fields: tourism, economy, energy. Prime Minister Groysman's visit to Ankara and Istanbul just 2 weeks ago was very successful. But that's better because that's very much in line with the slogan of our embassy. That slogan being more of Turkey in Ukraine, more of Ukraine in Turkey. And your very good ambassador in Ankara is also working in the same direction. But for too long now we have been talking about potential. Now is the time to go beyond potential, to realize things, projects, more trade. As Ukraine transforms and fulfills the Turkish-Ukrainian potential will be easier to materialize. For Turkey, Ukraine needs to be strong and stand on its feet as an independent country, preserving its territorial integrity, including Crimea, of course. Indeed, the world is going through a difficult period. I don't know how historians will write of this. In our region, there are crises across the world. I hope this is just a temporary hiccup in humanity's long journey, because we can do much better, we deserve much better.